During a time when there was very little hope and aspirations for women, Mary MacKillop established her own Australian brand of nuns, the Sisters of St. Joseph. She and her nuns had a strong sense of administering to the community and going out to the people and serving the poor.
She is Australia's first saint and has been described as Australia's original feminist. Strong, adventurous, courageous, prayerful, dedicated, determined, and gutsy. She is the saint of our age and a heroine who, despite many hurdles and adversities, achieved real outcomes of helping and educating the poor children of Australia.
Mary was born on the 15th of January 1842 in Melbourne. Mary's life growing up was not an easy one. Being the oldest of 8 children, her mother relied on her to look after her younger siblings. And by the time she was 15, she was working as a governess so she could earn money for the family to pay rent and buy food.
While working as a governess, she met a person who would change her life.
Father Julian Tennyson Woods.
Together, they started the first free Catholic school in Penola, South Australia, and formed a new religious order of nuns, the Sisters of St. Joseph. She was only 25 years old, and within 4 years of Mary becoming a sister, there were 130 Sisters of St. Joseph.
Mary inspired and recruited many women during her lifetime, educating them and giving them an opportunity to have a career as nuns.
Mary MacKillop said to never see a need without doing something about it. Not only was she educating the poor children, but during the early days she opened homes for orphaned and abandoned children.
This is where they found shelter, food and education, love and care.
Elderly women often found themselves homeless because they couldn't pay the rent, so they were put out on the street.
Mary found them a home and cared for them.
Many adults couldn't read and write, so Mary held night classes to help them. Hungry men found breakfast supplied by the sisters. The sick and the dying were visited in their homes, and during the terrible flu epidemic in 1865, the sisters closed their schools and went to nurse the sick and the dying.
The sisters' work spread from South Australia to Queensland, Bathurst, Victoria, New Zealand, New South Wales and to Western Australia. Mary, during her lifetime, would travel thousands of kilometres by horse and sulky, cob and coach, ship, coastal boat and steam train. Mary needed to see that her sisters had sufficient food and clothing and proper housing. She would visit the schools, always encouraging the children to do their best.
And in her pocket, she always carried lollies to give to children for work well done.
Mary faced many challenges in her life. Being a woman meant she had few rights.
She and the sisters often had to beg as they had no money.
She was excommunicated from the church for speaking up against wrongdoings. Being excommunicated meant she couldn't take communion, which devastated her. She was often in opposition with the bishops who didn't want her to have control and pursue her vision. Because the bishops wouldn't listen to her, she travelled all the way to Rome on a boat to speak to the Pope and ask him if she could be the boss of her nuns.
Her mother drowned in a shipwreck.
She suffered many chronic ailments throughout her life. To get through these difficult challenges, Mary MacKillop placed her trust in God. She had a constant love for Jesus and God, and she believed that God would always provide in tough times. From an early age, Mary heard her mother in difficult situations say, "God will provide," and she carried this attitude with her throughout her whole life. She understood that God was a generous God who was always calling her to trust. Time and time again, Mary had to place her trust in this wise God. She believed that God would provide whatever was needed in all aspects of her life. Mary's loving heart was drawn to the needs and care of children. She believed they were all God's children with equal rights, and that's how she treated them.
Her loving heart was open to love, compassion and forgiveness. She had learned from Jesus to say, "I forgive you."
Mary MacKillop's love and kindness for others spilled over into the animal world. One of her last photos taken of her before she died is with her brother Donald and her sister Annie and her pet dog Bobs.
Mary MacKillop died on the 8th of August 1909.
In one of her very last letters, she wrote the following as a postscript.
Whatever troubles may be before you, accept them bravely, remembering whom you are trying to follow. Do not be afraid. Love one another, bear with one another, and let charity guide you all your life.
St. Mary of the Cross was a remarkable leader in 19th century Australia,
Love was at the heart of everything she did.
establishing over 150 schools. Education in Australia is what it is today thanks to her faith, dedication and determination.
May each of us be inspired and follow Jesus with generous hearts like St. Mary of the Cross MacKillop.